Hey there, everybody. I am Deb Matlock from Wild Rhythms, and I am coming to you today to share a video that is inspired by questions I've gotten from clients over the years, but in the last probably 2 or 3 months, I've been getting a lot of questions about what kind of professional development does a nature connection practitioner need? What kind of continuing education is really relevant for our field? And how do we go about that when there's no regulating body telling us what we need to do as practitioners? And I think this is a really important question. And in my own heart, and my own personal ethic is that we have got to continually grow as practitioners. We have got to continually ask ourselves, what do I do well? What do I need to revisit? Maybe something I've been doing for a lot of years, and it's time to sort of check in again. What's going on in that part of the field? What part of the field is growing now that I feel like I'm unfamiliar with? What new trends might I want to understand a little better? Those are the kinds of things that are really good questions to ask ourselves, and then to sort of set for ourselves a training plan based with our budget and our time and all of those things. But I want to give a few tips here just to sort of help you think about what might be inspiring to you and might help you as you're continuing to grow as a nature connection practitioner, because of course, that's a lifelong journey. We never stop really learning how to be a good nature connection practitioner. One area that I think is really important right now is diversity, equity, and inclusion. When I started doing nature connection and environmental education work over 25 years ago now, this wasn't the same conversation that it is today. And it's a darn important conversation. And it's one that all of us, from whatever walk of life we're in, wherever we're practicing, we need to understand how can we be a positive force in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion and nature connection work? And there are trainings and webinars and books and videos, and it's just such a rich area where there's a lot of potential for growth and continued development. So I would definitely recommend jumping into that. And if you haven't already, or if you have just a little bit, look at what's out there. For me, this is an area that I feel like it's going to continue for the rest of my career. I've been in this area for a lot of years, and there's always more to learn. There's always something that I learn that surprises me or shows me a place where I can do a better job or be a better practitioner. Another area that is really critical and I think often gets overlooked in nature connection work, and especially nature connection work that is currently in trend, where people go in and do something for a little while and then get out, is growing ourselves as naturalists. A nature connection guide needs to understand where they're working. It doesn't mean that we have to have, biology level naturalist skills, although that can be great, but we've got to understand the places where we're taking people, the places that we're working with, the hazards, the sensitive areas in the places, like certain times of year, certain places it's not appropriate to take people. We've got to understand all of these things. We need to know basic things like hazardous plants and insects and reptiles and animals and weather patterns. And I've been shocked over the years, honestly, of how many people I've spoken to in the nature connection realm who didn't even know what the basic plants in their area looked like that could be a threat to their participants, like say poison ivy or stinging nettle or poison oak, or we've got to know this stuff. And here's the other thing: the more we understand ourselves as naturalists and the more we're constantly looking and growing in that area, it informs our work. We find beautiful metaphors, we find inspiration, we find new ways to share with people. And developing our naturalist skills can be as simple as getting local field guides and committing to digging into those, or going to nature centers in our town, or working with local naturalists and going on programs and just learning documentaries, learning about what's around us. So this is an area that I think is something that we can always be attending to. I know that I feel like every time I learn something new, there's another 15 questions of something I didn't even know existed. So the naturalist part of our work is a huge part, I think, of the professional development of a nature connection practitioner. I think the other thing is there are a lot of trends in nature connection, a lot, and they come and they go. And we need to be aware of what those are and asking ourselves, is this a trend that I want to get into? I want to learn more about? Do I want to have some training in this area or not? Do I not need it? If you look into something and go, well, that's not really my interest, or that wouldn't meet my client's needs, maybe you don't need it, but it's good to know what's out there. It's good to know what people are saying, good and bad, on either side of those trends. We've got to be educated as practitioners about our field. Another area that is is really interesting right now is the online world, the online facilitation, doing nature connection work virtually, which the pandemic forced a lot of us to do. And I've personally found some really lovely connections with people around the world. And, this is definitely going to stay a part of my own business. And also, there's a growth edge for all of us. So facilitating online, of facilitating discussions, of helping people to connect where we're not actually together or we're not outdoors, how to have nature be a vivid part of our programming, even if it is virtual. There's a lot of training out there. There's a lot of programming that you can look into for that. So if that's an area that you want to move into or that you're in and you feel like this isn't really how I want this to be, could be a great place for some professional development focus. A question I often get in regards to all of this is certifications. There's so many programs out there that offer different kinds of certifications. And it's easy to see all that and get kind of that anxiety of, oh my gosh, I should have this and I should have that and I should have this. And my answer to this is, maybe, maybe not. So when I look at a certification program, there's a few questions I ask myself. One is, who's leading it and what experience do they have? Do they have more or different experience than I have? That's a pretty key thing. If you're going to put money down on the table and time down, you want to make sure that the people you're learning from actually have something to offer you. That sounds like a no-brainer, but I think we probably can all think of times in our lives where we've gotten into programs and thought, wow, I didn't really need to pay for this. I wish I had looked into this more. The other thing is, if it's a body of work that is part of a larger body of work, like for example, in the ecotherapy field, there's a lot of exciting movement. There's a lot of new programs spinning up, new schools, new trainings. And there's also a lot of people who are foundational in the field and a lot of organizations in the field that have been around and are really deep into the work who also offer trainings. And so, do your homework. Just because it has a name that sounds like something else doesn't mean it's the same quality. It also doesn't mean it's not a good thing. Some of the pop-up training programs in certain ecotherapies offer something new and interesting, or the practitioner, the facilitators bringing their own flavor to it. There is nothing wrong with that, but just know what else is out there. Look into these fields and say, are some of the people that are really foundational thinkers, researchers, and scholars in the field, are they still practicing and offering trainings? Do I want to take from them? Do I want to go right into the source? Or do I prefer this program that is local to me, or has a certain spin that I really like, or has a price point that's better for me? Just know what you're getting and what you are not getting. Especially when it comes to certain things that are more popular at certain times, because that's where a lot of things will spring up. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, there's some great programs. It's just that we need to do our homework as the consumers of these programs. And I think the other piece about certification is really asking ourselves, what do we need? Do we have enough certification? Are we bringing in clients? Are we able to offer things? Because there's a lot of ways we can learn without having to spend a whole lot of money. And again, we might want that. Sometimes a certification, even if it's in something that we don't necessarily need, the certification might be to allow us to work in certain places or with certain organizations. And we want to, in that case, we want to really find out, who are we getting those certifications from. So a last point in this, we could talk for hours on this, but a last point, and this is a really darn important one, is the deliberate connection with the wild world that we create for ourselves. Our time, our commitment to this, our dedication to learning from and with the natural world, who is a primary collaborator in all the work of nature connection. And so, yeah, going to training after training and reading books and documentaries, these are all really important things, but our dirt time, our field time, our outdoor time, our time in connection cannot be underrated. This is something that I like to put on my calendar as an appointment so that I see it's there. It's my wild collaboration time. I'm going to go sit for a couple hours, 3 hours, or I'm going to take a few days, or whatever it is I can fit in, and it's like, on the one hand, it's a constant thing for a lot of us, that constant collaboration, that constant awareness. And on the other hand, creating those focused times where that is the purpose, is just to go sit out and be and fill up our own ecological selves and get inspiration and just check in with what are we doing and how are we doing it. And letting that be a huge part of our ongoing professional development as nature connection practitioners. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'm always happy to chat further. So please feel free to reach out. But otherwise, thanks so much for listening.